My husband cheated, but I turned the tables with this one bold move. I remember the exact moment everything in my life crumbled. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the sun was filtering through the windows of our house, our beautiful, 4-bedroom, suburban dream that we'd built together over the past 12 years. I was sitting at the dining table, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when I noticed a notification I never should have seen. It was an email. Not to me, to him, James, my 41-year-old, handsome, once charming husband. We'd met in our 20s and built everything from the ground up. He was a real estate mogul, with charm that could sell an igloo to an Eskimo. I, Jessica, 39, was the stay-at-home wife, the one who raised our 2 kids, Isabelle, 13, and Noah, 10, while managing our household like a well-oiled machine. We had the perfect life. Or so I thought, but that email shattered the illusion. It was from someone named Ashley. At first, I thought it was just another business contact, but something about the way her name appeared in that notification felt off. My gut churned, and for the first time in a long time, I followed my instinct. Curiosity, no, suspicion, pushed me to open it. And there it was, their exchange. Hidden deep in the folds of his emails, camouflaged among mundane work correspondence. But this wasn't about work. Ashley, 27, an assistant at his firm, young, blonde, and utterly cliché, had sent him photos from their recent business trip. One was of her, scantily clad, in the hotel bed we'd once shared during our vacations. The subject line? "Miss you already, baby." My breath caught in my throat, and I felt my chest tighten, like someone had just clenched my heart in a fist. How long? How long had this been going on right under my nose? As I scrolled further, my stomach turned. Their affair wasn't just recent. It had been going on for 2 years. While I was at home folding laundry, while I was making dinner, while I was raising our children, he had been sneaking off to see her. The texts, the pictures, the lies about late nights at the office. The guilt flooded over me first. How could I have been so blind? But that guilt, it quickly morphed into rage, an all-consuming fury that shook me to my core. Still, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I stared at the screen, feeling a strange calm wash over me, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. He didn't deserve the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Not after all we'd built together. Not after he'd made me believe our life was perfect, while he lived a double one. I calmly closed the email, took a deep breath, and went upstairs to our bedroom. As I passed by the mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself. I wasn't the 25-year-old woman I'd once been, but I still looked good. I kept myself fit, stayed sharp. And yet, to him, that wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. That evening, I went through the motions. Dinner with the kids, a quick glass of wine. James came home late, as usual, kissing me absent-mindedly on the cheek before saying he had more work to do in his home office. I nodded, smiled like a fool, and told him I'd see him in bed. But that night, as I lay beside him while he slept soundly, probably dreaming of his little plaything, I knew I had crossed a threshold. There was no going back from this, and I was going to make him pay. This wasn't going to be some explosive confrontation where I cried, screamed, or accused him. No, this would be something far more calculating. Something he wouldn't see coming. I wasn't the type to lose my cool easily. I played the long game. I always had. And this was no different. As James slept next to me, oblivious to the fact that his world was about to crumble, I felt a strange sense of power surge through me. I had time. I had patience. And I had one advantage he would never expect. I was smarter than he thought. The first thing I did the next morning was open a new bank account. One he'd never find. I started putting a little money away every week, just enough that he wouldn't notice. I'd always managed our finances. I knew where everything was, every dime, every investment. And slowly, ever so quietly, I began moving it. I also made copies of every important document I could find: tax returns, property deeds, business contracts. Meanwhile, I continued playing the perfect wife. Smiling, nodding, pretending I was the same Jessica I'd always been. I made sure the house was clean, the kids were happy, and James had no reason to suspect that his betrayal had been discovered. But every time he smiled at me, every time he kissed me, every time he told me he loved me, I felt a deep, burning disgust. How dare he touch me with the same hands he used to caress her? How dare he come home to our children after spending hours with her? I didn't let on. I couldn't let on. The success of my plan depended on one thing: keeping him completely and utterly in the dark. But as the days passed, I couldn't help but wonder, was I the only one who knew? Was I the only one wearing a mask in this marriage? And then, just as I was getting comfortable in my silence, the twist I never expected came. I thought I had everything under control. I had the advantage, the upper hand, and the secret of his affair tucked away where only I could see it. My plan was in motion, and all I needed was time to execute it. But what I didn't expect was the twist that would turn my entire strategy on its head. It started innocently enough, another quiet evening in our perfect, fake life. The kids were tucked into bed, James was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. I was cleaning up after dinner, going through the motions, keeping my facade intact. And then, I heard it. His phone buzzed. Normally, I wouldn't have cared, but this time, something felt off. I glanced over at him from the kitchen, casually wiping my hands on a towel, pretending not to notice. He picked up his phone, and I watched as his expression shifted, just slightly. It was barely a flicker of discomfort, but I knew James well enough to recognize when he was hiding something. My heart raced, but I kept my face neutral, calm. I walked over to the sink, pretending to refill my glass of water, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of his screen. It was a message from Ashley, only, this time, it wasn't just another flirtatious text. No, this was something else entirely. "We need to talk. I can't keep doing this. You need to tell her the truth, or I will." I felt my stomach drop. What the hell was this? Was Ashley threatening him? Was she getting tired of being the mistress? Or worse, was she planning to blow the whole thing up before I could execute my plan? I calmly sipped my water, my mind racing. James sat frozen on the couch, staring at his phone, the color draining from his face. He quickly typed a response, probably trying to do damage control, but I couldn't see what he wrote. He was good at hiding things, I'd give him that. Suddenly, I realized something. If Ashley was threatening to tell me, that meant she had no idea that I already knew. She didn't know I was already ahead of her. I had been playing this game for months, laying the groundwork, slowly dismantling James's life without him even noticing. But now, this wild card, this foolish, impulsive girl, was about to ruin everything. I needed to act fast. I wasn't about to let Ashley hijack my revenge. No, I was in control here. That night, after James went to bed, I snuck downstairs, grabbed his phone, and went straight to the conversation. I read through everything, every message between them over the past few weeks. She was getting desperate. She wanted more time, more attention. She was no longer satisfied with being the side piece. Typical. And now, she was demanding that he leave me for her. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I knew James. He was too much of a coward to confront me. He'd never risk losing the house, the money, or the image of the perfect family man. But Ashley? She was reckless, unpredictable, and worst of all, emotional. She was willing to set fire to everything just to get her way. I stared at the screen, the weight of it all sinking in. She was giving him an ultimatum, and in a matter of days, maybe even hours, everything I had been working towards would collapse. She'd blow it up for the both of us. And then, an idea hit me, a way to turn this twist in my favor. I opened my laptop and went to my email. With trembling fingers, I began typing, carefully crafting a message that would change the course of everything. To Ashley, 27, subject let's talk. Hi Ashley, it's Jessica. Yes, his wife. I know about the two of you. I've known for a while. But don't worry, I'm not interested in screaming matches or confrontations. I'm not here to fight you over James. In fact, I think we can help each other. You want James? Fine. You can have him. But I need something from you first. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. at the Blue Orchid Cafe. Alone. Let's get this over with. Jessica. I hit send before I could second guess myself, a strange sense of satisfaction washing over me. I knew exactly how this would go. Ashley, naive and desperate for James, would think she was winning. She'd show up, eager to negotiate, to claim her prize. But she had no idea I was playing a much bigger game. The next morning, I made sure James saw me preparing for my usual lunch with friends. I kissed him goodbye, and he had no clue what was about to unfold. I wasn't sure what Ashley would do, but I was certain of one thing: this twist was about to work in my favor. I arrived at the cafe early, sipping a latte and waiting for her. And when she finally walked through the door, looking nervous and jittery, I smiled to myself. I was ready for the next phase of my plan. I sat at the cafe, watching Ashley as she entered. She was even younger in person, long blonde hair, too much makeup, and a nervous energy that betrayed her excitement. She looked like she expected me to throw a drink in her face or cause a scene. Instead, I gave her a warm smile. Let her think she's in control. I waved her over, and as she hesitated for a second, I motioned to the empty chair across from me. She sat down cautiously, folding her hands in her lap like a child waiting to be scolded. I could feel the tension radiating off her, and it gave me a strange sense of power. She has no idea what's coming. "Thanks for meeting me, Ashley," I began, my voice steady and pleasant. "I'm sure you were surprised to hear from me." "Yeah," she said, fidgeting with her phone. "I didn't expect this." I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence build. She was uncomfortable, shifting in her seat, clearly unsure of what to expect. I could see her rehearsing lines in her head, preparing for a confrontation that would never come. "I'll be honest with you," I said, leaning forward slightly. "I know about everything. The affair, the lies, the nights he told me he was working late. I've known 4 months. Her eyes widened. "Then why didn't you confront him?" I finished for her. "Because I needed time. Time to figure out what I wanted. And now that I have, I think it's best for everyone if we move forward without any more drama." She blinked, clearly confused. "So, what are you saying?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "I'm giving you James. You want him, don't you? I've seen the texts. You've been asking him to leave me for a while now." Her face flushed with embarrassment, but I could see a flicker of excitement in her eyes. "I mean, yes, I love him." I almost laughed. Love? She thought she loved James. Poor, stupid girl. She had no idea who he really was, the man behind the charming facade. But I wasn't going to educate her on that. No, I was going to let her figure it out on her own. After all, once I was finished, she could have him broken, penniless, and trapped. "I'm not here to stop you," I said, leaning in again. "In fact, I'm here to help you. James and I have built a life together, a family, businesses, properties. Untangling that isn't going to be easy, but I've already started. I've moved some money around, and I've been setting myself up for a clean exit." Her eyes sparkled with hope. She thought she was winning. She thought she was going to walk out of here with everything she wanted. "Perfect. But here's the catch, Ashley," I said, lowering my voice to a whisper. "James can't know. Not yet. If he finds out I've been moving money, preparing to leave him, he'll try to stop me. He'll freeze our accounts. He'll drag this into a nasty divorce, and trust me, you don't want to be tied up in that." Her brow furrowed, and I could see her calculating. She was smart, I'd give her that. But she was also greedy. She wanted James all to herself, and the thought of a smooth transition was too tempting for her to resist. "What do you need from me?" she asked, leaning in closer, as if we were two co-conspirators plotting the perfect escape. I smiled. "Hook, line, and sinker. I need you to keep him distracted," I said. "Keep him happy, keep him thinking everything is normal. Let him believe he's still in control. Meanwhile, I'll be finalizing my exit plan. Once I'm ready, I'll serve him the divorce papers, and you'll be free to have him." She nodded eagerly. "Okay, yeah, I can do that." Of course, she could. I knew she'd jump at the chance to play her part. What she didn't know was that I had no intention of leaving her with James, or the life we'd built. As I walked out of that cafe, I felt a surge of adrenaline. Ashley thought she was part of some grand scheme, that we were allies in this twisted love triangle. But what she didn't realize was that she had just become my pawn. She was going to keep James distracted while I moved the rest of our money into hidden accounts, secured the house under my name, and ensured that I'd be the one walking away with everything. The next few weeks passed in a blur of calculated moves. I drained every joint account we had, leaving just enough to keep James unaware. I consulted with the best divorce attorney in the city, a shark who had already mapped out a strategy that would leave James with nothing more than his name. I started transferring assets, property, stocks, investments, quietly, making sure everything was in my control. And James? He was clueless. Thanks to Ashley, he thought his life was still perfect. He'd come home, smiling, content, and I would kiss him on the cheek like nothing had changed. He had no idea that his empire was crumbling behind his back, piece by piece. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I still had one more card to play. Something that would completely destroy any chance he had of fighting back. One night, after James had fallen asleep, I quietly slipped into his home office. I knew he kept all his important documents there, including his business records, tax returns, and most importantly, his emails. I opened his laptop, carefully navigating through his inbox, and there it was, the smoking gun I had been looking for. James had been involved in some questionable business deals. Deals that, if exposed, could ruin not just his reputation, but his entire career. I downloaded everything, making sure I had copies of the emails, contracts, and communications that would serve as my insurance policy. If James even thought about fighting me in court, I'd burn his career to the ground. With everything in place, I was ready. The divorce papers were drawn up, the accounts were secured, and I had Ashley on a leash, distracting James while I set the final pieces of my plan in motion. He had no idea that the woman he had cheated on, the woman he thought he could betray and discard, was about to take everything from him. And when the day finally came for my revenge to play out, I knew it would be perfect. The day I had been meticulously planning for finally arrived. I felt a mix of excitement and calm as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting my hair and ensuring I looked effortless stunning. I wore a fitted navy blue dress that hugged my curves, emphasizing the subtle power I now held. Today was the day James would face the consequences of his betrayal, and I was ready to deliver the final blow. As I finished getting ready, I could hear the sounds of the morning routine unfolding in the kitchen. James was already up, pouring coffee and packing lunches for the kids. I took a deep breath, rehearsing my lines in my head. I wanted to come off as nonchalant, to project an air of normalcy. I couldn't let him see the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. "Good morning, babe," I called out, forcing a bright smile as I entered the kitchen. James looked up, surprise dancing in his eyes. "Morning. You look nice," he replied, glancing away for a second before returning his gaze to his phone. "Thanks. Just wanted to dress up a bit today," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "You know, something different." James shrugged, absorbed in whatever was flashing on his screen. I felt a rush of satisfaction as I watched him. He had no idea that this would be his last morning as my husband, the last moment before the facade of our perfect life shattered into pieces. After breakfast, I sent Ashley a quick text: "Today's the day. Be ready." She was eager to play her part in this drama, and I couldn't wait to see how everything unfolded. I knew I had her completely under my thumb. Once the kids were off to school, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I had everything planned out perfectly. James was supposed to leave for a meeting downtown, and I would take the opportunity to serve him the divorce papers at home, in the most dramatic way possible. As he grabbed his briefcase, I casually asked, "What time do you think you'll be home?" "Shouldn't be too late," he replied, still focused on his phone. "Got a few clients to meet, but I'll be back for dinner." "Great, I'll have something special waiting," I said, suppressing a smirk. After he left, I took a moment to savor the silence. I poured myself another cup of coffee and sat down, mentally preparing for what was to come. I couldn't help but feel a sense of giddy anticipation. Today, I would reclaim my power. Around noon, I made my way to the divorce attorney's office to finalize the papers. As I signed the documents, a wave of relief washed over me. I was finally taking control of my life. The attorney assured me that everything was in order, and I left with the papers tucked securely under my arm. Now it was time to set my plan in motion. I returned home, taking a deep breath as I walked through the door. The house felt quiet, eerily still. I set the divorce papers on the coffee table and waited. My heart raced with anticipation. A few hours later, I heard the familiar sound of his keys jingling as he opened the door. James stepped inside, and his face lit up with a smile when he saw me. "I'm back. What's for dinner?" he asked, oblivious to the impending storm. "Actually, I have something else planned," I replied, my voice steady. "Why don't you sit down for a moment? We need to talk." His expression shifted, curiosity mixed with confusion. "What's going on?" "Please, just sit down," I insisted, gesturing toward the couch. He frowned but complied, sinking into the cushions as I paced in front of him, the tension thick in the air. "James, you need to understand that what I'm about to tell you is serious," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "I know about your affair. I know about Ashley." His face went pale, the color draining from his cheeks. "Jessica, Save it," I interrupted, raising my hand. "I don't want to hear your excuses. I've been gathering information, and I've prepared for this moment. I won't let you gaslight me into thinking this is okay." "What do you mean?" he stammered, panic creeping into his voice. I pulled the divorce papers from the table, holding them up like a trophy. "I'm serving you these divorce papers. I've been planning this for months. You thought I would just sit back and let you walk all over me? No, James. This is my time now." His eyes widened in disbelief. "You're joking, right? You can't be serious." "I am dead serious," I replied, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "And it gets better. Not only am I taking half of everything we own, but I've also set things in motion to ensure you can't fight back." His brow furrowed as he shook his head. "You can't do this. I'll fight you. You'll regret this." I couldn't help but smile. "Oh, James, you have no idea how much I've prepared for this. You see, I've kept records of every single shady deal you've made, and if you think I won't use that information against you, you're sorely mistaken. I have the leverage to take everything from you." His face paled even further as he processed my words, the realization hitting him hard. You wouldn't. "Try me," I said, my voice cold as ice. "This isn't a game anymore. You've lost everything you thought you could take for granted. I'm done being your doormat, and I'm done playing nice. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." James stood up, pacing the room in agitation. "You're making a huge mistake. You think you can just walk away with everything? You'll regret this when you see what I can do." "Do your worst," I replied confidently, feeling an intoxicating rush of empowerment. "But remember this: you made this bed, and now you have to lie in it. Good luck trying to convince Ashley that you're worth it when I expose everything you've done." In that moment, I could see the cracks forming in his bravado. The confident man I had married was now nothing more than a frightened boy, cornered and desperate. As he turned to leave, I called out after him, "And don't forget to tell Ashley that the man she's chosen is about to lose everything." He stopped, his shoulders sagging as he realized he had no escape. "You're a monster," he spat, but the venom in his words was hollow, revealing the desperation behind them. "I'm a woman scorned, James, and now I'm the one holding all the cards." As he walked out the door, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The revenge I had planned for so long was finally in motion, and there was no turning back. I had reclaimed my power, and no matter what happened next, I was ready to face the aftermath of my actions. But as I watched him leave, a thought crossed my mind. What if Ashley thinks she can swoop in and take my place? Little did she know that the storm wasn't over yet. I still had one last trick up my sleeve, and I was going to make sure she learned her lesson too. As the door clicked shut behind him, I smiled to myself, ready to embrace the chaos that lay ahead. The days following James's departure felt surreal, as if I had stepped into a different reality. Each morning, I awoke with a sense of liberation, the weight of betrayal lifting off my shoulders with every sunrise. I was finally free from the shackles of a loveless marriage, but I wasn't done yet. There was still more to be done to ensure my revenge was complete. After serving him the divorce papers, I had a sense of purpose that invigorated me. I knew I couldn't allow him or Ashley to think they had won. I began meticulously documenting every interaction James had with our children, making sure to note how he tried to twist their perceptions of me. I was determined to protect my kids from his manipulations, and I needed to show him just how far I was willing to go. One evening, as I scrolled through social media, I came across a post from Ashley, a photo of her with James, both of them beaming with joy. Anger bubbled inside me, but I quelled it quickly. Instead, I decided to use it to my advantage. I snapped a screenshot and sent it to my attorney, who was already preparing to build a solid case against him. "Look at this," I typed, "he's flaunting his infidelity like it's a trophy. I want to use this against him in court. He's trying to play the victim, but I want to show the judge that he's not just abandoning me, he's abandoning our kids too." My attorney assured me that this evidence would strengthen my case. "We can show that he's prioritizing his new relationship over his responsibilities as a father," she said. "This will help you retain custody." Feeling empowered, I devised a plan to reveal James's true colors to our children. I wanted them to know the truth without tainting their relationship with him. I gathered them on the couch one evening, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken words. "Kids," I began, my voice steady, "I know you've seen some things lately, and I want you to hear this from me first." Their eyes widened in anticipation, and I took a deep breath, carefully choosing my words. "Your dad and I are getting a divorce, and it's not because of anything you did. It's because he made some choices that hurt our family." They looked at me, confusion dancing in their eyes. "What do you mean, Mom?" my daughter, MIA, asked, her brows furrowing. "I mean, your dad has been seeing someone else," I said gently. "Her name is Ashley, and he's chosen to be with her instead of being with us." The silence that followed felt deafening. I could see the gears turning in their young minds as they processed my words. "Is that why he's not around much?" My son, Ethan, finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, it is," I replied, my heart aching for them. "But I want you to know that I love you both so much, and I will always be here for you. We're a team, and nothing can change that." MIA and Ethan exchanged glances, and I could see the realization settling in. They were beginning to understand the gravity of the situation, and it felt like a turning point for us as a family. We talked late into the night, sharing laughter, tears, and hugs. In that moment, I felt like we were healing together, and I vowed to protect them from the fallout of their father's choices. In the days that followed, I became even more strategic. I contacted Ashley, letting her know in no uncertain terms that she had crossed a line she would regret. I found her social media profiles and sent her a message. I hope you're ready for what's coming. You think you've won, but you're merely a pawn in a much larger game. I wanted her to feel the weight of my words, to realize that I was no longer the woman she could trample over. Then came the day of the court hearing. The atmosphere buzzed with tension as I entered the courtroom, a mix of nervousness and determination flooding my senses. My attorney sat beside me, reviewing our strategy. I could see James and Ashley in the corner, both glancing my way with expressions that ranged from cocky to anxious. As the judge entered, I straightened my back, ready to face the music. The hearing began, and I could feel the tension in the air, thick and palpable. James tried to portray himself as the loving father, but with every piece of evidence my attorney presented, it became clear that he was more interested in his new life than in the responsibilities he had neglected. Mr. Johnson, my attorney stated, do you believe it's acceptable to prioritize your relationship with your girlfriend over your children's well-being? James hesitated, stammering his response. I'm doing my best. That's not what your actions indicate, my attorney interrupted. You've missed crucial family events, and your children are suffering the emotional fallout of your choices. You have chosen your girlfriend over them repeatedly. The judge nodded, clearly unimpressed. It was a thrilling moment as I realized how effectively my strategy was playing out. As the hearing continued, I felt a surge of triumph knowing that every move I had made was coming together. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. In light of the evidence presented, I believe it is in the best interest of the children to award primary custody to Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Johnson will have visitation rights, but the children's emotional stability must come first. The moment hung in the air like a victory banner unfurling. I couldn't suppress the smile creeping onto my face. I had fought for my children, and I had won. After the hearing, James approached me, a look of desperation etched across his face. You can't do this to me, he said, voice strained. I'll fight you. I'll take this to court again. Go ahead, I said, my voice steady and confident. Every time you try, I will be ready. You've underestimated me for far too long. This is just the beginning. As he walked away, defeated and frustrated, I turned to Ashley, who stood awkwardly to the side, watching the entire exchange. You think you've won, don't you? I said, my tone icy. You may have him for now, but you'll see just how quickly things can unravel. She opened her mouth to retort, but I held up my hand. Save it. I've made my plans, and I won't hesitate to expose everything if you push me. You're just a side character in my story, and I won't let you rewrite my ending. As I left the courthouse, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had stood up for myself, reclaimed my power, and made sure that my children would always come first. James and Ashley had made their choices, but I was no longer a victim. I was a warrior, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The aftermath of this battle had just begun, but I was more than prepared. I had weathered the storm and emerged stronger than ever, and I was determined to write the next chapter of my life on my own terms.